In August 1997, Joy and Tom Williams were having dinner with their friend Emily. Their friend's house overlooked Monterey Bay in California. The house in Aptos was about a quarter mile from the bay, and because it was perched high on a hill, it afforded them a panoramic view. After dinner, Joy decided to take herself out onto the veranda to take in some fresh air. As she was enjoying the ocean view, she noticed a bright yellow-green glow in the water that looked to be about a quarter mile from the shore. As she stood there observing the glow, she noticed that it was becoming brighter, but then, to her utter amazement, a gigantic egg-shaped object began to slowly rise up from the water. The object was gigantic, and as it slowly rose up, she could see kelp falling away from it. She quickly called out to her husband and friend, and all three looked on in shock and awe at what they were seeing. It did not take long for all three to realise that what they were observing was very, very strange. Joy had grown up on a military base and had seen many different types of military aircraft, but nothing compared to this. They were all totally fixated on the object as it slowly moved. Although the object would have been at least half a mile from them, it made no sound whatsoever as it made its way north along the shoreline. Emily rang to get a telescope to better observe the strange craft. Joy was the first to look through the telescope. I could see portals all around the centre of the object. She counted 12 portholes, and each was elliptically shaped, alternating green and orange in colour. She followed its movements as it continued in a northerly direction. After about 20 minutes, the object abruptly stopped next to the chimneys of a nearby coal power station at Moss Landing. The object was so close to the tall chimneys that its light illuminated them, and it hovered close to the openings. As the object was extremely close to the chimneys, Joy was able to get a better perspective of the craft and figured it must be at least 50 feet across. After each of them had observed the craft, they had no doubt that they were seeing a UFO, and each reacted in different ways. Joy was slightly nervous, but Emily was quite upset at what she had just witnessed. However, Tom was fairly relaxed and took everything in his stride. But what happened next left the three of them totally stunned. A huge metallic-looking arm emerged from the side of the craft and bent upwards and then downwards. The end of the arm contained a gigantic pair of pincers that proceeded to dig inside the opening of the chimneys and appeared to be collecting something, and continued for a further 20 minutes. Because the area was so populated, they figured other people must be observing the same thing. Finally, Tom called the police, and initially the officer was interested and friendly, but the moment he realised that they were talking about a UFO, his attitude completely changed, and he dismissed all of their testimonies. He suggested it was probably a fishing boat. Joy told the policeman that it was still there in the sky, but he refused to take them seriously. They then returned to watching the object, and after about 20 minutes, they all saw its lights switch off in an instant, where it suddenly vanished. At the end of the evening, both Joy and Tom were now shaking up somewhat because what they had observed was both frightening and awe-inspiring. Emily refused to talk about it ever again. However, Joy could not let the matter drop, knowing that strange objects were appearing over Monterey Bay. The fact that it came out of the water, and she knew that the bay had some very deep trenches where it was able to hide. What was even stranger was that when she called local radio stations, they told her they've received no other reports. How could that be, as the whole of Monterey Bay would have been like a giant TV screen? How could they be the only witnesses amongst the thousands of people that would have had a view of the bay that evening? She decided to contact a woman by the name of Linda Moulton Howe to share her experience. Linda is an American investigative journalist and Emmy Award-winning documentary filmmaker best known for her work as a ufologist, including her investigation of cattle mutilations and conclusion that they're performed by extraterrestrials. Instead of accepting the sighting as just a weird experience, the encounter had now left her feeling uneasy, uncertain, puzzled and astonished. For many people, witnessing such an event can challenge everything they believe in. In 2018, and over 20 years after the incident, Joy decided to contact MUFON, and at the time, Joy did not know that Moss Landing power plant had a history of attracting UFOs. She also found that in November 1992, and 5 years before their strange sighting, a former US Army officer had been working at the power plant as a security advisor. He'd been on patrol and driving past the plant, and as he approached the Moss Landing bridge, he saw a flash above the plant's east cooling tower. He quickly drove to the side of the road on the north side of the bridge and observed a blue-white orb. It was about 20 feet above the tower. It then slowly passed over the towers, followed by a series of 3 bursts of light that emanated from the orb. Then something fell from the orb, leaving a trail of white smoke. The object then moved in a westerly direction and out over the ocean. As it was a clear night, he had a clear view of the object until it quickly vanished. After the unusual light show, the officer continued patrolling, but then about an hour later, as he approached the power plant, he witnessed another glowing orb. It was another blue-white orb about the size of a basketball, moving east at around 100 feet. It came from the ocean at around 30 miles an hour, and he watched it move inland to the south before vanishing. On this occasion, the lights were reported to a local radio station, but were dismissed as meteorites. On Thanksgiving Day in 2006, there was yet another sighting when 2 friends were walking along the beach in Moss Landing and noticed an oval white light in the sky, again near the power plant. Short time later, one of them saw it again offshore, where it was stationary for a few seconds before shooting one way and then immediately shooting off in the other direction. It quickly vanished before reappearing in the distance. Fortunately, the witness was a photographer and had his camera ready. It appeared on the photo and the negative clearly, and there was no sign of being tampered with or an error. Unfortunately, we were unable to obtain a photo of the UFOs. On January the 28th, 2011, a woman was coming out of the Watsonville store and spotted 2 orbs about 7,000 feet in the air. It was glowing and much brighter than the planet Venus. Both orbs slowly faded away across the ocean, and she claimed they were hovering directly above Moss Landing. Then in July 2015, many witnesses observed multiple glowing red orbs about 5 miles off the coast of Moss Landing. The objects continued to hover in the same area for over an hour. At one time, one of the objects shone a beam of light down to the ocean that illuminated the ocean's surface. Why was the Moss Landing power plant attracting so much UFO activity? There are many records of UFOs hovering over nuclear power stations, factories and power plants around the world, but the witness who described the pincer-like instrument was something nobody had ever encountered before. For Joy Williams, 27 years had passed since she witnessed the X-shaped object over Monterey Bay, and she is still no closer to an answer.